Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture, the spooky season. We're doing the werewolf movies this October. Now we've done The Werewolf of London. We have done The Wolf Man. We have done Cry of the Werewolf. Time for werewolf movie number 4, She-Wolf of London, 1946 from Universal Pictures. And I was going to have that up right from the get-go, but maybe it actually makes more sense to pop it up when I reveal the title of the movie that I'm doing. Nothing but professionalism here in DadsDen of Pop Culture. So we're going to be looking at She-Wolf of London today. We're going to go through the various scenes. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to talk about themes. I'll give you my impressions of the whole deal. You know the drill, and because we're doing it that way, we're going to be doing some spoilers. So, let us begin. She-Wolf of London, copyright Mac McSlovey, famous Scottish film producer. Or no, wait, oh no, that's 1946. Never mind. Our primary cast for this film, and we'll talk about them a little bit more as we roll through. But the protagonist in this one is played by the great June Lockhart in a very early role for her. She was just 21 years old when she did this one. She would be better known in the future from TV, from Lassie, from Lost in Space, from Petticoat Junction. She is from a very theatrical family. Her father is Gene Lockhart. At a minimum, you probably know him as the judge in Miracle on 34th Street. And of course, her daughter is Anne Lockhart, Sheba on Battlestar Galactica, among many other TV appearances. Just wanted to throw them in right off the bat. Our director for this film is Gene Yarbrough. Now, he directed a lot of Abbott and Costello pictures, although strangely enough, not the one where they meet the Wolfman and Frankenstein and all the rest. Did a lot of Bowery Boys movies. Did The Devil Bat, King of the Zombies. I'm going to probably do that one of these days. House of Horrors, and, of course, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, Hillbillies in a Haunted House. Point is, he did a lot of programmers, kind of B-movies, all right? Screenplay for this one is by George Bricker, who wrote a couple Torchy Blane movies. If you didn't know, Torchy Blane is actually the inspiration for Lois Lane. She played a reporter who was always, getting in trouble trying to run down stories. He also wrote Mr. Moto in Danger Island, great old Mr. Moto film. The Devil Bat, there's a connection with Yarbrough. House of Dracula, House of Horrors, and The Corpse Came COD for all you kids out there. COD stands for cash on delivery. When we used to order things, you see, sometimes instead of sending a check, you just have to pay when the delivery anyways. I guess we really just don't do that at all anymore. The cinematography in this one is by Maury Gertzman, who shot the final 2 Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films, plus The Brute Man, Invisible Invaders, worked on TV's Mr. Ed and The Lucy Show, and Here's Lucy. So solid professionals, but not folks who are necessarily known for doing big budget A pictures. All right. We begin with London at the turn of the century. The legend of the Allenby curse was almost forgotten until. So this movie should be set right around 1900, which probably places it chronologically before The Wolfman and Werewolf of London. So the She-Wolf was first. A little man, and boy, if you watch old movies, you know this dude. You've seen him in a lot of things. Lloyd Corrigan, tons of supporting roles. And he also wrote movies in the 1920s and directed some in the 1930s. Well, he comes meekly into the office of Inspector Pierce, played by Dennis Hoey, famous as Lestrade in the 6 Universal Sherlock Holmes films. He was also the inspector, kind of briefly, in Frankenstein Meets the Werewolf, or the Wolfman, which I just happened to watch earlier today. So he comes into this office to tell the inspector that His carriage is ready to take him to the park, and it ain't for a picnic. The inspector thinks that this whole thing is a waste of time, going to the park to investigate a routine crime like this, but Detective Latham, the little man there, thinks the crime is actually highly unusual, a man being attacked by a werewolf in a London park. And Pierce can't believe that Latham believes that, it's actually a werewolf attack. But we also get an interesting factoid here. It wasn't a wolf man, the victim said, attacked him, but a wolf woman. Okay, kind of interesting. We next see the carriage rolling through this park, and it passes two people who are riding horses, Gidget's dad and Lassie's mom. This is Phyllis Allenby, of course, played by June Lockhart, and her beau, Barry Landfield, played by Don Porter. Now, it looks like they're going to soon be wed, so that will give Gidget two sisters who are, either next week or next December, depending on who wins a horse race. And from this intro, we can see that Barry is a lawyer, a bit sure of himself, but ultimately a decent guy, and that Phyllis has some spirit, but seems like she might be a little bit on the naive side. Well, Barry ends up winning the race, so they're going to be getting married next week, which is actually fine with Phyllis because she didn't really want to wait until December. This impending wedding may just be important to the plot. Now, while they're smooching, they overhear Latham telling Pierce that the footprints are definitely those of a woman. Maybe it was a female werewolf. At the sound of the word werewolf, Phyllis gets visibly tense. She doesn't let on to Barry why, but she's obviously very bothered by this. Now, he thinks it's because she's read about all this werewolf nonsense in the papers, and she lets him believe that this is the case. He tells her not to worry, soon she'll be living with him, and he can protect her. In the meantime, I don't think you'll be roaming the park at nights. And she answers, not if I can help it. Okay, now, what did we begin with? The Allenby curse. She's kind of worried about this talk of a werewolf. Okay, so we kind of put one and one together here. Now we next get a look at the Allenby place and the inhabitants therein. Carol Winthrop, the cute one there, played by Jan Wiley, and Hannah, the housekeeper, played by Eiley Mallion, both played many supporting roles in Hollywood films. Well, Carol wants Hannah to deliver a love note to the chemist, but Hannah is intercepted by Carol's mother, Martha, played by Sarah Haden. Very good actress, and she does a great job in this film with this character. As warm as Carol and Hannah are, Martha is cold. Well, naturally, Carol is not thrilled about this, but Martha does not approve of Dwight Severin, her boyfriend, the chemist, calls him a useless fellow. So we're putting things in motion here. We have two ingenues, one about to be wed, the other thwarted by her cold, overbearing mother. Well, the two retire to the house to speak more, and here we get into the nitty-gritty. Martha explains that she is not really Phyllis's aunt. Carol is not her cousin. Martha is the woman who might have married Phyllis's father. Now, Martha chose instead to wed Carol's father, a man as penniless as that no-good Dwight Severin. When he died, she had to become the housekeeper of the Allenby's London house. The house belongs to Phyllis because she is the only heir. There might be a little bit of resentment in here. Well, the conversation is then interrupted by a dog barking its head off. The family's German Shepherd is barking at Phyllis, who's returned from the ride with Barry. She's terrified, calling to Barry to help her. Martha and Carol emerge and get the animal in hand. He's so gentle with everyone, but Phyllis, Martha can't understand it. Perhaps she should try to make friends with him. Now, we know what this can mean in werewolf movies when a dog freaks out around a person. Well, that night, Phyllis hears lots of a racket coming from outside. Their house is right essentially next to the park. Their dog's barking and howling. And she's startled by Martha while she's hanging this lantern outside her window to drive away the evil spirits. Now, Martha puts her to bed, fetches some warm milk to put her to sleep so the dogs won't bother her. She kind of lies in bed, restless, waiting for Martha, while Carol heads out for a midnight rendezvous looking very much like Little Red Riding Hood. It's an interesting scene. There's a certain tension to it. Lots of movement, lots of furtive looks. Feels like it is building up to something. Before Carol can get out of the house, though, Martha stops her and demands some answers while Hannah, the housekeeper, is listening in. Now, she knows Carol was heading out to meet Dwight and sends her up to her room instead. Teenagers, am I right? And then Martha brings the milk to Phyllis, and you can't help but feel there's something sinister happening here the way it is shot. This is very much a women's movie, in as much as the important cast members are all women. And due to the historical period, the filmmakers seem to sort of put an edge on a domestic scene like this, with the music, with the way it's acted, her cold attitude, sort of an inversion of mothering behavior, very much in the Wicked Stepmother vein. So, at that time, 1900, women obviously were expected to be in a domestic sort of role and a setting. And so they're using that domestic setting to kind of build this tension and suggest maybe something, like I said, sinister going on. Well, in the park, two police are on patrol when they hear a scream, and they head towards it. And then we see a woman, her features hidden, entering the grounds of Allenby Manor, and right behind her, that German Shepherd, leaping over the wall. And he's not chasing the woman, but he's really following behind her. Now, this shows you the other important reason to have so many women in the house for a movie like this, about a she-wolf of London, provides you with more potential suspects. Who is the she-wolf of London? Okay. Well, when Phyllis awakens the next morning, she discovers blood on her hands, and her slippers and the hem of her robe are covered in mud. Martha enters very cheerful and finds Phyllis concerned. She knew this would happen, she says. What have I done? Where did I go last night? And Martha comforts her, tells her she couldn't have gone out and done anything. But how to explain the clues? Okay, so is Phyllis falling under the Allenby curse? And Phyllis had a horrible dream. She was walking on a desolate moor. She was stalking someone to kill them. It's got to be the Allenby curse. Or, she's subject to spells of insanity. It's one or the other, right? Well, Martha again tries to console her, tells her to come down to breakfast, and act as if nothing has happened, because, we don't want Carol to suspect that something's wrong. So it's really interesting here what she does, right? I'm sure nothing happened. But when you come down to breakfast, don't act like anything's happened. We don't want Carol to suspect. See, wonderful little twist there, and she plays it really nicely. Well, she kind of continues doing this at breakfast, assuring Phyllis that she's innocent, but acting as though she has something to hide from the others in the house. And then Carol reads about a small boy being killed in the park last night, torn apart by an animal, and Phyllis breaks down at this, and they help her back up to her room. Now, when Barry arrives that morning to take Phyllis to the dressmaker's wedding dress, she's getting married, he's informed that she is not well. In her room, here's saying, I can't live with myself knowing I murdered that child. You murdered no one. You must stop talking about it or thinking about it. And when she hears that Barry is here, she doesn't want to see him. She never wants to see him again. So this is the guilt speaking that's really starting to prey on her. Well, Martha tells her, of course, she'll see Barry again tomorrow, and hands her something to drink to calm her nerves. Well, Barry has a sidebar with Hannah a couple days later, hears that Phyllis is feeling better, she's getting sun in the garden, and he's confused because Martha was telling him that she was still very ill and couldn't see him. He goes through the garden to see Phyllis, and she's very shaken when she sees him. Why have you been avoiding me? He says. She says she can't talk about it, and turns and leaves and asks Martha to send him away. Martha tells him, well, she just has a case of nerves. She's sure she'll feel better soon. Well, on his way out, he runs into Carol and asks her to take a drive with him so he can try to get some more info about what's going on in this house. Phyllis sees Barry help Carol into his carriage and just feels crestfallen. Has he chosen somebody new already? Well, that evening, Latham from Scotland Yard arrives to question the house. He discovers that there are no men living here, but there are vicious dogs, according to Hannah. Well, at this point, Martha arrives. Any suspicious people around lately? No. Any clues to the murder? No. But we think it's an animal or person from the neighborhood. Latham begins to share his theory that a werewolf is responsible, but shifts it to a madman or madwoman. So he starts, but he's kind of catches himself and changes what he's saying. Well, that night, it's very much the same thing. Again, howling and barking, and Phyllis very restless. She begins to get her lantern, but she decides against it. She looks in the mirror to reassure herself that she's not changing. It can't be, she says. She winds up putting cotton in her ears to block out the noise of the dogs. Nice use of shadows in this film, and a sort of softness to the shots as well. So a nice bit of cinematography, not super fancy, but they do get some really good shots in this one. A knock interrupts her, and it's Carol. Before you shut yourself off from the world entirely, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? I like Carol in this movie. She's a good egg. I think there's a point where you go, maybe they're going to try to say, maybe she's the one doing, but I don't know. You don't really get that. If that was their intent, it doesn't really come through very well with her performance. Just seems like a genuinely nice person. Well, she asks if there's anything Phyllis would like to tell her. No. She talks about her ride with Barry and that they both think there's something more sinister bothering her than barking dogs. And this upsets Phyllis. Tell me what it is, and perhaps I can help. There's nothing you can do, nothing anybody can do. So Phyllis has an ally in Carol, and also, frankly, Hannah and Barry. But Martha has managed, with help from Phyllis's own fears and guilt and this idea of the Allenby curse, to close her off from all of them, which, of course, is exactly what she was planning to do. Now, after Carol leaves, Martha arrives with another beverage, coffee this time, to keep her awake. Phyllis then locks herself in, lights the lamps, plugs her ears, and presumably starts chugging the Java. Fade to black. A police carriage arrives at the public park. It is a foggy night. The police are heavily patrolling the park, in pairs now. Latham asks the constable there for his theory. He thinks it must be one of these packs of stray dogs that are roaming the park. But Latham pushes the idea, once again, of a werewolf. At Allenby Manor, the mysterious figure in white appears once again, the dog barking his head off at her, but not attacking her. And he waits for her to cross the garden, enter the park, and close the gate. The barking kind of suggests Phyllis for a moment, but the rest of what the dog does not really suggest her. But when the dog jumps over the wall to follow, that is suggestive of another person who might be stalking the park. And I have to pause for a moment on this image. The two constables remarking on Latham being, kind of nuts. The shorter of the two, I'm pretty sure, is James Finlayson, often a co-star with Laurel and Hardy in some of their absolute funniest films. Dude was Scottish, and he was freaking hilarious. At any rate, as Latham moves through the shrubbery, he catches sight of that woman in white and gives chase. She eludes him and then creeps up behind him and strikes. We hear growling and screaming, and the constables rush to his aid as he stumbles from the bushes, clutching his neck. She's done me in, the wolf woman. And then he expires. The attack occurs in the fog, so there's really no definite signs of who the attacker might actually be. Well, the next morning finds Phyllis crashed out in bed. Martha turns off the gas lights, opens the curtains. Aunt Martha, how did you get in here? Well, through the door, of course, but I had it locked. It wasn't locked, Phyllis. And then she spots a bloody garden claw on the floor. It's happened again. What have I done? I don't know. Carol enters, ready for, taking a ride, and Barry is downstairs and wants Phyllis to go as well. But no, she can't see him. And Carol leaves them with news of Latham being murdered in the park by a woman who made a sound like an animal. Well, Phyllis wants to go to a doctor, tell them everything, but Martha won't hear of it. On their ride, Barry and Carol come across the scene of the previous night's crime. Now, he knows if he could just see Phyllis, he could get her to tell him what is wrong, what is really going on. Carol suggests that he do just that, whether her mother likes it or not. Well, Barry gets the job done. He does take Phyllis out for a ride, even cheers her up a little bit. Phyllis tells Barry that Martha was trying to protect her. She also tells Barry that they cannot be married ever, and she cannot tell him why. He thinks it's about the curse of the Allenbys. Now, she believes in that curse. She's had weird dreams since she was young and her parents were killed. Dreams of being engaged in pagan rites and turning into a wolf and hunting people, which is actually, pretty creepy. She starts sobbing. She is extremely frightened. Well, that night, the inspector, Pierce, takes personal charge. They're ramping things up and even arming the constables with guns. When the lady in white emerges, Barry is waiting for her. Except this doesn't look like the woman we've been seeing previously. The face doesn't seem covered, okay? Barry follows, loses her in the fog at one point, and then is accosted by the patrolman. And we then see a man sitting on a bench smoking a pipe. The woman creeps up behind him and attacks, growling and ripping at his throat. The constable's reaction halts the attack. The woman sneaks away into the fog as they arrive. But they do spot her kind of in the distance, and they give chase. And then Carol arrives. She was the lady that Barry was following. The man on the bench is Dwight. The two were having a secret rendezvous. Well, the next morning, Barry arrives at Allenby Manor to question Carol. He accuses her of being the she-wolf. And it did seem that the attacker was wearing the same clothes as Carol. She denies it, and he explains that she may have been unaware of what she was doing due to insanity. Well, she explains that she's been seeing Dwight in secret for 3 nights, and Martha overhears. With this explanation, Barry is not really sure what to think. When Barry leaves, Martha scolds Carol. Carol says that she is marrying Dwight no matter what, not Barry, which is what apparently Martha's trying to arrange. She'll be glad to see them married, so Martha will stop. When I say them, she'll be glad to see Barry and Phyllis married, so that Martha will stop harping on about him. But Martha explains Phyllis will never marry Barry. She's insane. Okay, the lady who's been saying she's fine is now telling Carol that Phyllis is insane. Well, that night, Phyllis is reading up on lycanthropy. Kind of makes me think of Bugs Bunny and that Magic Words and Phrases book. She hears the barking and retrieves a bundle from the closet. She takes it to Carol's room to have a talk. We next see Carol heading downstairs. Martha assumes that she's going out for her nightly rendezvous with Dwight, but Carol shocks her. She's going for the police. Phyllis has told her the whole story. Carol thinks Phyllis is the victim of a terrible hoax. This seems to upset Martha. Carol heads out into the park to fetch the police, and now both Barry and Dwight are following her. So maybe there's still a little suspicion there. Well, Martha heads upstairs with warm milk for Phyllis. This shot, very reminiscent of the one in Hitchcock's Suspicion from 1941, Cary Grant carrying the glass of milk. I believe they say a light was put in it to make it, really the focus. I don't think they did that here, but Hannah is watching her do this very suspiciously. When she arrives in Phyllis's room, we've suddenly switched to a Dutch angle for some reason, and I'm really not sure why, but Phyllis refuses the milk. You must drink it. It will quiet your nerves. You want to be completely at ease when you tell your story to the police. Looks like Martha is okay with Carol going to the police now. Well, Phyllis drinks the milk and asks if she will be taken away tonight. And then we see her vision blurring. She says, I feel as though I've been drugged. And boy, this is the scene here, folks. You're right. I drugged you. Now, Hannah is overhearing this at the door. So I wouldn't hear the dogs? No, Phyllis. I'm going to kill you. I mean, Haden delivers these lines perfectly, really great. And so it all comes out. If the police investigate, they'll discover that Phyllis is in fact not insane. Martha planned it all to get her out of the way, so she and Carol could live as they'd grown accustomed in Allenby Manor. Haden starts getting twitchy here. Nice descent into madness. She confesses to killing the little boy and the detective. The police will think this is suicide. Dude, when she pulls that knife, I'm telling you what, it's really, really good. But Hannah interrupts and Martha goes after her. She runs down the stairs and Martha follows and falls, landing on the knife. And that is just in time for Barry and the police to arrive. Hannah tells all, and Barry rushes upstairs and rouses Phyllis out of that stupor. She's going to kill me. No, dear, she'll never kill anyone else. And the end. The end. It's not a real long movie, and it does move along at a pretty darn good clip. So wait a minute. Where's the werewolf? Well, there is no werewolf. What they do in this film is they use the werewolf concept to sort of drive the action. What you really have in this movie is something more along the lines, a little bit of Rebecca, but a lot of Gaslight. And so the werewolf concept kind of works in to the gaslighting. Phyllis already has this knowledge. She's had these dreams, these nightmares. She's kind of primed for that. And Martha uses that to her advantage to get what she wants, to sort of make her think that she's going insane and going out into this park and killing people. So they do a nice job with the whole werewolf thing of getting you all ready for that kind of thing happening, but it never really does. Okay, so is this a werewolf movie? Well, no. I mean, from that perspective, it really isn't a werewolf movie. But there is a monster in it. I mean, Martha is scary. Martha's as scary as the Wolfman and as scary as the Werewolf of London. No doubt about it. And a lot of that's due to Haden's really great performance in the role. So good movie, solid movie. They did a nice job with it. Not maybe technically a werewolf movie, but once again, we're seeing how you can take the werewolf concept and spin it into all different kinds of things. And I think the advantage is, anybody can become a werewolf potentially, right? And so maybe all werewolves are kind of similar, are savage, growly, killing things, but the people turning into them can be vastly different characters. And it's a way you can explore it. Now, in this case, again, it's a woman who thinks this is happening to her. She's terrified. We see the way she reacts to the potential of having done these horrible things that she didn't really do. And then we get to see the woman who really was doing it, and again, could she be any scarier if she was actually turning into a wolf? The fact of the matter is she's scarier because she's not. She's not somebody who's losing control of something savage within her. She's using what's savage within her to get what she wants. She-Wolf of London, 1946 from Universal Pictures. Good flick. I like it. The other thing I found interesting was, it just occurred to me, none of the men in the movie really do anything of any value. Barry tries to intervene, good guy, but is completely unsuccessful at it. Dwight kind of the same. Inspector Pierce, shows up at the end when it's kind of all too late. Who are the heroes of the movie? The heroes of the movie are Carol and Hannah, when you get right down to it. The villain is Martha, and the victim is Phyllis. So women, like I said, a lot of women in the picture, they really are the most important characters in the movie. The guys are all sort of tangential. I mean, the most important contribution is probably Latham, and his contribution, is becoming a victim of the killer. So that was kind of interesting in 1946. So there you go. She-Wolf of London, Universal Pictures. You might want to check that one out if you've seen it. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you have any questions about the picture, let me know there. We can take the spoilers off now, since I'm just doing my end of the video spiel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. That would be very cool. Like I said, we're doing werewolf movies in October, and we have one movie left. Next week, I Was a Teenage Werewolf. And then one more little werewolfy thing besides that as well. You'll find out next week what that is. So you might want to subscribe. You might want to check out the channel. A lot of other Halloween-y sort of videos that you could watch, and all sorts of other pop culture. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. have a little bit of fun out there. Enjoy the spooky season. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.